Vampire.
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 If vampires aren't real, then why does every culture seem to have them? This question got me into a rabbit hole, one so deep it nearly ruined my life. I just had to know why. But somewhere between Nosferatu and Nosferatu, things got strange. I've discovered that this creature is a folkloric paradox, a walking corpse that debated God with priests, once triggered military investigations, started an entire economy, is possibly related to tuberculosis, social class anxiety, and they have an obsession with counting poppy seeds. There's no creature as confusing as the vampire, and maybe that's exactly why it works. Ask someone where vampires come from, and you'll probably hear Transylvania with a confident nod and maybe even a Count Dracula impression. But dig a little deeper and it's pure chaos. Vampires are culturally unhinged. Slavic revenants, Chinese Jiangshi, Indian Vetalas, West African Obayifo, Roman Strix, Filipino Manananggal, these creatures don't even agree on their species classification. Some are demons, some are corpses, some are spirits with identity issues, but they all have one thing in common: they drink something.
Drink my blood.
In Serbia, the vampire was a bloated peasant who returned to suck blood and harass livestock. In ancient China, it was a hopping corpse in funeral robes, harrowed by qi and poor burial practices. One 18th century account describes vampires as knocking politely on your door, and if no one answered, they just left, which is polite but deeply unsettling. Others believed vampires could become butterflies. Yes, butterflies. Nightmarish blood-sucking insects wrapped in symbolism. Or possibly just the result of poor translation and fever dreams. So I started to wonder, were these creatures real? Or was the idea of them just too useful to ignore? And who decided they should look hot? I asked a room full of people to describe a vampire, and the answers were disturbingly uniform: pale, elegant, brooding, British accent,
I think we should travel.
weirdly hot. You could have swapped in a casting call for a perfume ad and no one would notice. But here's the twist: the original vampires? They looked like bloated raisins, purple skin, blood leaking from their orifices, more cryptid than Crypt Keeper. They weren't cool, they were horrifying. In early Eastern European folklore, a vampire was just a rotting peasant who wouldn't stay dead. They smelled like death, wore their funeral shrouds like bathrobes, and lurked in graveyards like expired yogurt left in the sun. They weren't seducing you, they were chewing your cousin's face off. So when did they stop looking like moldy corpses and start dressing like runway models? Somewhere between the 18th century vampire panic and Anne Rice, the peasant monster got an upgrade, a makeover. With a silk cravat and a tragic backstory, they're no longer just corpses. They're cool? But was that evolution or marketing? Vampire hunting was once a real profession, not in a fun Van Helsing way, more like a panicked neighborhood watch with shovels and torches. Entire towns rallied up to dig suspect corpses. Some were tried after death, others were staked, burned, and buried at crossroads, just to be safe. There were even actual vampire kits sold like occult gift baskets. A crucifix, a wooden stake, vials of holy water, powdered wolfsbane, some even came with pistols, some came with mirrors. It was Wish meets The Exorcist. Only $29.99 to protect your family from Vlad. And there was a market for it. Stakes were whittled, blessed, and labeled authentic vampire killers. Graveyards became crime scenes, coffins were booby-trapped. The panic wasn't metaphorical, it was bureaucratic. At one point, the Austrian Empire sent inspectors to Serbia to investigate a vampire problem. Even the Vatican weighed in. It was a whole thing. And in that frenzy, the vampire went from myth to headline. Vampires are no longer creatures, they're concepts. Metaphors stretch like bat wings across centuries of human anxiety. They've represented everything from disease to desire to class warfare to sexually transmitted trauma. The vampire is the only monster that can be anything so long as it's thirsty. In Victorian England, they were repressed lust in a top hat. During the AIDS crisis, they were a bloodborne warning. In post-9/11 fiction, they were the lurking unknowable threat. In late-stage capitalism, they're corporate overlords draining you dry, the bloodsuckers at the top. Their sex, death, infection, and immortality rolled into one gorgeously cheekboned package. One scholar described vampires as a blank screen for cultural projection. Another called them an immortal metaphor with commitment issues. But maybe they've been stretched too far. We have to talk about it, because it happened and we never recovered. In 2005, vampires sparkled, the Twilight Saga arrived, and with it, a glittering existential crisis. Edward Cullen stood in a Washington forest, shirtless and shimmering.
Hey, did you get contacts?
No.
Your eyes were black the last time I saw you, and like golden brown.
Yeah, I know. It's the fluorescence.
These weren't monsters. They were K-pop cryptids, vegan, morally conflicted, gorgeously tortured, and covered in glitter. What's wild is how normal it became. Teenagers didn't just accept it, they embraced it. Sparkles became symbols. Sparkles sold books, dolls, t-shirts, and entire soundtracks. The vampire had fully morphed into a crush. Not feared, not even feared a little, but desired. It broke the canon. Ask 5 people how to kill a vampire, and you'll get 5 answers. Garlic, holy water, decapitation, fire, silver bullets. Wait, no, that's werewolves. Sunlight? Maybe, depends on the franchise. Some vampires burn, some sparkle, some just get sleepy. In Romania, it was believed you needed to decapitate the corpse, burn the body, bury the ashes under crossroads, and sprinkle poppy seeds for good measure. Some legends even say that vampires are obsessive-compulsive. They'll stop to count grains, which is both creepy and weirdly endearing. One story insists you could ward off a vampire by placing a fishing net on your porch, because they'd be compelled to untangle it all night. Folklore isn't always elegant, but it is inventive. And the inconsistencies? They tell us something. That no one ever agreed on what a vampire was. They just agreed that they didn't want it coming back. You'd think that immortality would have a user manual, but the rules for becoming a vampire? Utter chaos. Get bitten? Sure. Die unbaptized? Yep. Unalive yourself in 18th century Poland? Absolutely. Be born on a Saturday? That too. In some parts of the Balkans, it was believed that if a dog jumped over your corpse, congratulations, you're undead. One Romanian tradition warned that staring too long into a vampire's eyes could convert you. And in some lore, it didn't even take death. A strong enough breeze could do it. A breeze. Imagine becoming a vampire because the wind had bad intentions. But it gets stranger. In Greek folklore, eating meat from a sheep killed by a wolf could make you a vampire. In 19th century New England, tuberculosis was often blamed on consumption vampires, dead relatives who drained the living from beyond the grave. Entire families were exhumed, hearts were burned, and ashes were fed to the sick. It was part biology, part superstition, part ghost story, but it always boiled down to one thing, a fear that death was contagious, and maybe it was. In 1732, something strange happened in Serbia. A man named Peter died. 9 days later, villagers claimed he returned, asking for food, then dying mysteriously. Within a week, 9 people were dead. Panic set in. His grave was dug up, his body was fresh, with blood at the mouth. They staked him through the heart and burned him. That incident sparked a vampire panic that spread across Europe. Suddenly, everyone had a vampire problem, Entire cemeteries were dug up, corpses were mutilated, villages were emptied, and the Austrian Empire sent military surgeons to investigate. The Vatican debated excommunication protocols. Newspapers printed vampire autopsies. It was mass hysteria meets medieval CSI. The church didn't believe it, the empire tried to stop it, but no one could ignore it. Because once fear enters the bloodstream of a culture, it spreads like the plague. And vampires, whatever they were, had become more than myths. They were proof that death could knock twice, and once they got in, they were hard to bury. No other monster has goals as random as vampires. Dragons want treasure, zombies want brains, werewolves want not to be werewolves. But vampires? Their goals shift like fog. Some want blood, some want redemption, some just want to teach high school biology and glower at girls named Bella. In one story, a vampire drains entire towns. In another, he abstains out of guilt. In one, he's building a blood empire. In another, he's writing poetry in a loft in Prague. Their motivations are as fractured as the myth itself. Anne Rice's Lewis wants to be human again. Dracula wants domination. Edward Cullen wants to emotionally confuse a teenager. Carmilla just wants to hang out with girls forever. The vampire is a screen, and what we project onto it is what we fear or desire the most. But maybe that's the trick. They don't have to want anything, because their existence is enough. They are things we can't explain, things that return, things that linger at the edge of the woods or the bed. They are fear wearing teeth. Vampires don't die, that's kind of their thing. But unlike elves, gods, or Highlanders, vampires suffer for it. Their immortality comes with hunger. Their beauty comes with pain. Their eternity is not a gift, it's a debt. Bram Stoker described Dracula's immortality as a curse of loneliness. Anne Rice's vampires spend centuries grappling with memory, morality, and malaise. Even in Twilight, Edward broods endlessly about how his eternal life has made him a monster. Sure, he looks 20, but he's also lived 100 years of teen angst. That's not hot, that's exhausting. And yet, we buy it. Immortality is seductive. Eternal youth sells. Vampires tap into the paradox we can't resist. Live forever, but pay the price. Stay beautiful, but become a monster. Never die, but never rest. It's a fairy tale with a blood tax, yet we still want it. The vampire is a paradox, a contradiction in a cape, a creature we made because we needed something to blame when the night was too quiet, and death came too soon. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to not miss out on any future uploads. Thanks and peace out.